going insane with temperature mean. That's me. How y'all doing? It's a beautiful day. The grass is all freshly watered here in the park. Everybody's walking and talking and having a blessed experience in the moment. Hope you guys are too. By the way, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be informed when new Going Insane videos drop with temperature me. That's me. Leave a comment, even if it's just an emoji. It really helps the algorithm. Appreciate you. Okay. Oh, by the way, in the description are services that I offer, and in the discussion tab is a little bio about me, if you're curious. If you're not, that's okay too. So, the oracle message today was kind of felt like a combination of what I like to call the 90-day vacay rehab, right? Cutting away from the addictions, whether it's people, places, circumstances, or habits, self-medicating or otherwise, that kind of fill the voids. And since we're filling the voids because we're transmuting it, since we're transmuting those negative, counterproductive energies that seem to keep us tethered, plugged into the matrix, tethered to the 3D undivine matrix. And when we fill, transmuting means you have to also fill the void, transmuting that energy back to its original source, which is always love. Always. And it's love unconditional, not conditional. Okay? It's not a con. You tap in, tune in, turn on the true unconditional love of source. And then, so now we're moving forward, right? Even if you don't do a 90-day vacay, you don't have to. You can do the work. It's all about intention and motivation, right? And tapping in and riding that light beam into your new next, right? Death and transformation through that super moon is really propelling the achievement of this forward in galactic steps forward. I mean, it just is. That's where we're at. So, during that message, they popped in and locked in this kind of that how to gauge it's okay feeling. So the catalyst of that was first, first as I was being divinely led by circumstances out of my control, catalyst by the situation I was in the unhealthy, toxic home life with my children. And since I was in a new position as a new mom at the age of 30-ish, and totally codependent on my circumstances, because I wanted to raise my children, and thought I had an agreement to make that possible, but as it turned out, it ended up being my first round and round and round and round the mountain circumstance that I could identify as unhealthy, and I couldn't just bounce. As a single, you can bounce. It's really simple. Well, I say that, right? But it's considerably more simple than toting along two precious lives, two souls from your loins, pieces of you that you're responsible for, and just bounce. So it really helps. Trust me, I tried to do it myself a few times, but I always ended up back there because I didn't have divine help and assistance. Oh, this is really tough. And then when I asked for divine assistance and intervention, and I got it, I was like devastated because I was being placed in a 90-day vacay, and thought if I could not go to that particular one, the one I was being divinely placed into, that it would save my face, save face, I said, do you know what? It'll be mortifying. Well, those are words from conditioning in my upbringing, that going to rehab was not okay. It was and if it was something you were doing, you did it out of state and out of sight and out of mind of those around you. So that actually meant the generation that raised us did not raise me and my peers. Okay, you didn't talk about stuff. You whispered the word cancer or pedophile, or people weren't considered mentally ill. They were eccentric. They weren't alcoholics. Oh, that's just who he is. That's just how they are. So there was really no support system unless they just didn't want to deal with it, and then they shipped you off. That's just how it was. And um, wearing masks in the generation above me was very important for social climbing, social standing, and advancing in career, because you had to appear as a balanced, functional family, even though that made the perfect ground to cultivate dysfunction and the need to self-medicate. And I can go into more of that, but we're not going to right now. So I argued. I was like, do you know what people will think of me if I go there? Oh my gosh, it'll be mortifying. It'll be devastating. It'll be, whatever. And the fear was from the darkness I was allowing past my boundaries. I did not know that at the time, okay? Because I hadn't cut away anything yet. I couldn't identify it to do it. And the place I was being encouraged to fight back and put myself into actually ended up being a dark workshop for dark um, happenings. And I know people that went there. And quite clearly, the divine spoke to me and said, daughter, why do you think you're having fear to go to where I so lovingly was going to place you? Why do you think you have fear? Who do you think wants you to be afraid? And I was like, duh. The fear was pushing me into a place where darkness could prevail, was prevailing already, and could infiltrate my environment, my mental environment, instead of where divine had things already prepared in advance for me to enter into. So once I realized that, and I received the messages of love and care and divine intervention on my behalf to save me from myself and the environment that I allowed to be created, and I surrendered to life got way easier. It just started falling out in front of me. When I argued, well, then I still rebelled because I had an indefinite amount of time to wait. I didn't trust. I didn't have faith in the time and the placement of my. Like I said, jumped the gun, and I had to be put on a God shelf. And I was at the end of this because I I pulled something off, and I got them to put me in on emergency status. And apparently it was a week early because at the end of the 90 days, I was there an extra week because they had nowhere to to plot me into. And the apartment at the transitional living center for me and my children was empty. But since I had jumped the gun in the beginning, they weren't sure they were going to let me in there. And it took an extra week. And so I had to resurrender again and go understand that I was on the God shelf. And I was going to collect God dust until um, everything could be put back into place, and my faith to grow in that period of waiting. And that was okay. It was okay. Everything worked out because I didn't doubt again. It was very clear what had happened. It was laid out in front of me. It was very, very uh, clear to me in that moment in space and time. At any rate, so fear was something I had to identify and release, release, release. Okay. Now, on the flip side, coming out, it said today in the Oracle message, an accountability partner. Well, really important because under the structure of the TLC with my children and taking full advantage of all the resources and opportunities and self-maintenance, reinforcement, and getting my strength, my steadfastness for my walk and for my children, and minus the things that I used as crutches or numbing and dumbing and relinquishing my control, my will, my desires to the circumstances, and it worked. I didn't take a drink until 2010, and this was like, I don't even know. I don't know. I don't do years. And so it was like 2006 or so, something like that. Since my son was born in 2000, he was 7. His sister is 2.5 years older than him. So that gives you kind of a, but all kinds of miracles and opportunities, um, educational opportunities. They didn't actually make sense, to make sense now. I got into nonprofit. I'm a grant writer. I know how to form a 501c3. I know how to manage a 501c3 and the full spectrum. And it was a class that was a gift, a grant to me by a stranger at the time. Just walking down the street, and he said, "Hey, come here." He says, "I have this opportunity, and I'll send you to school for it. you help me out on the other side. And that's what happened. It was hard for me to get a job because I had been arrested before in the 90s. It was, it was a bunch of hooey. They were using me as an example, but it put stumbling blocks into my future, because I couldn't say I hadn't been arrested for a felony. And I mean, that was a bunch of hooey. I had cocaine on me, but the way they handled it, they should have just given me. I was very young, and I wouldn't give names, so they threw the book at me for a first offense, and because they knew who I hung out with. I'll just say that, and they wanted me to flip. Well, back in those days, snitches got stitches, and that wasn't what I was about, because it wasn't their fault I got in trouble. And they weren't bad people. They weren't cartelish people that went around killing people and stuff like that. This was the 90s. I mean, it was party time. It was Bill Clinton era, riding on the wave of whatever Ronald Reagan had just done. But that's a different story. Just a point of reference. So anyway, I got my house, and I was right back in the all of a sudden, because I'd been years after my vacay, uh, moving steadily along. But then, things happened, and I was going to be able to have a home, finally, a gift, where I could raise my children in peace and create my dream space. And it was going to be a place that I dedicated it back to God to help souls along the way, as I cultivated my garden, a literal garden. It was beautiful. It really was. But at first, back the truck up. But um, there had been a death, and I was able to like exhale, and I picked up a bottle. Um, and it was, you know, I figured out something. Alcoholics, I was drinking vodka like they couldn't smell it and you couldn't tell. I don't know why. It was just something, relapses happen, and they're for your growth, to show you that there's still something there that needs to be addressed. You ain't got the root yet. And so you just keep going for the root. That's the message right there. You just keep going, and if you relapse, okay, go back and find the root. Don't get steeped in the regret, because that's where shame and blame and condemnation and yada yada, and that self-love and self-preservation and your self-love boundaries, they crumble. But I figured this out, because my ex-husband used to do this. He instead of drinking in front of, sorry about that, instead of drinking in front of people, because he was highly in trouble, socially speaking, societally speaking, for drinking. He was trying to hide it, so he'd go and he'd slam his beers or whatever, right? And I was doing that, and then you're going and you're drinking too fast, like way too fast, because you're hiding it, and it creeps up on you, and then you're fucking wasted, and then you're denying that you're wasted to people who obviously know you're wasted. So it's the hiding the drinking that exacerbates it, because you think you're hiding from yourself into the divine and you're not. And the people around you know. So if you're going to drink, or if you're going to do it, if you have to hide to do it, maybe you should just go back and work on the root before you start doing it. I mean, that's a good, trigger point to understand, realize, and identify. And then the triggers. One of the biggest things they teach you in the 90-day vacay is that identifying your triggers, because you can feel it coming on. It starts deep, right? It rises and it rises. And then you're like, fuck it. So you just do it. And then you're like, on the other end, you're like, fuck it. Why did I do that? Right? So instead of kicking yourself in the ass, just say, okay, why? Identifying the triggers so that you can stop it in its tracks. Ask for Michael to cut that cord, because it's a cord. Trust me. Ask for Michael Angel to cut that cord and to transmute that and to reveal to you what it was, which weed you didn't pull the root all the way out of, and then ask for help to purge that, transmute that, embrace your ego for, don't get pissed because you can't willpower through the ego. You have to respect your ego because it's there for a reason. It's just trying to protect you in ways that it's been conditioned to feel were correct and right and sure at the time, okay? Feel the emotion of it, transmute the pain, and burn, the letter to heaven, the burnt offering prayer. Do that. Release it. And put down your affirmations about yourself, gratitude for what your blessings are, and gratefulness for protection moving forward, and the intention that you want to heal within there. And it'll happen because you're doing the work and you're cultivating your garden, trying to let the pretty flowers and the butterfly attracting, bird attracting, bee attracting, beautiful, full, ecosystem of your garden. And then do service for others because it expands that energetically. Feeling bad about yourself, you go do something good for someone else out of the kindness of your heart, intentionally, but you can do it intentionally and have it come from your heart, even if it's for this intention to release you from feeling sorry for yourself or in the dumps. Okay? So, and then, cutting the cords to the people in the toxic situations, and as best you can. I mean, sometimes you can't. You have to deal with them. But understanding your triggers, if you can't stop being around them, it that's a source of a trigger, then feel your triggers out and excuse yourself. Have a an intention that if you start feeling triggered, your ego will send you a signal, so you can excuse yourself for whatever, from whatever, to go and regroup, say a prayer, cut the cord, even if it's in the bathroom stall or outside smoking a cigarette or whatever. Okay, and go back because you're strong. And each time you do it, you're gaining strength because that's your intention. And just one step forward, one step onward. And that's the walk away from the 3D matrix to the Heidi. Oh, that's even cooler. So that's the message. I can do it. Anybody can do it. If you know someone who could benefit from this information, pass it on. We're our brother's, we're not our brother's keeper, we're our brother's helper. We can't pull their weeds for them, but we can show them that weeds need to be pulled. Okay, so thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for walking with me. I love you. I love you guys. Humanity is going to make very, very great strides, very, very short order. It's take, everything to happen is going to play out, especially through from now till 2004, till everything can be like looking almost full circle in this ascension. Some really hard times have to come first, so it's really important to try and rein in that chasing that dragon, that escapism, the self-medications and medicating that we do, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, whatever. So hang in there. Ask for help. Call in, gang. They want to come. They want to help so much. They do. They're just waiting on you to invite them. So invite them and come back. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Woo! Have a blessed day and hang in there. Whoop. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, even if it's an emoji. And I'll talk to you next time. Peace.